In the gospel today, Jesus sends his disciples, his followers, he sends them out to the neighboring towns to prepare the way, and he sends them 2 by 2. One of the most revolutionary things that has happened for me in my 7 years of priesthood was a simple statement by Pope Francis early on in his pontificate that had to do, I think, very much with what Jesus did in the Gospels, sending out his followers to the neighboring towns 2 by 2. And that was this. Pope Francis said 4 simple words: go to the margins. Go to the margins. I've been waiting for someone to tell me to do that. I had 1,000 excuses for why I shouldn't, but I knew that God is calling all of us to do this, to go. We are sent. But I think there's a fear, a natural fear, which is why Jesus and Pope Francis have to say it, have to encourage us and tell us to go. We have lots of different fears, and one of the most common fears, or the most pressing, is we're not even sure how to do it. What does that mean? Do we knock on doors and yell at people? If you don't join us, you will burn in hell or whatever. We're not sure. What does this mean? We've seen people do it wrong, too. So that makes it even more difficult for us. And I think just overall, it terrifies us. Or it should. It terrified me, and still does, even though I've tried it more now in the past few years. It's terrifying to go out from our comfort zone, from our home, from where we're from, and go and talk to people about Jesus. But Jesus is clear. This is the call of any disciple and any follower. We are to go and visit people. And it's beautiful because it says, go to their home. Jesus specifically mentions this, and he talks and tells them about how to interact with these people in their homes. He doesn't say, hey, invite them to church and hope they show up. He says, go to them. Go out to them. And on these fronts, we've been talking about both of this general concept, I think, hopefully for at least a year or so in our church. The church has a lot of wisdom to share with helping us overcome our fears, overcome our anxieties, and do what Christ is calling us to. One of those ways we've been talking about, again, continues and hopefully will continue until the end of time, is our effort here through the leadership and guidance of the Legion of Mary to go out to people's homes in our community and to invite them here, to invite them to join us, to let them know that we're praying for them. That is living out the gospel. And there's such strength when learning how to do it, when people have wisdom to share. And again, using the Legion of Mary as an example, they've been doing it for 100 years. Going door to door, going to towns, going to communities, going to people's homes, and doing precisely what Jesus asks in the gospel. There's such strength in doing it 2 by 2. I'm not a lone ranger. There's that sense of safety and surety that comes when I'm doing it with a friend, when I'm going out with other people. We also are living out this baptismal call, this call of the disciple that Jesus gives in the Gospels through St. Vincent de Paul. In the very same way, although with a slightly different emphasis, we are sent out through a program in a way that's been around for hundreds of years. Wisdom, techniques, ways to do it so that our fears are able to be overcome. There's ways to do it, and people have experience and things to share and wisdom to share. We go, as well as a parish, to people's homes to help them, particularly when they're in need. So we have these 2 ways, particularly here in our parish, that are there for us. And I hope that we're taking advantage of them and recognizing this idea that we are being sent out. Jesus does it. Pope Francis is encouraging us to do it. And I think that, again, I just ask us to continue to reflect, to continue to think about, are there ways for me to get involved? Are there ways for me to go door to door or to go to people's homes with my brother and sisters in the faith, using ways and techniques and things that help us, that come from years of experience? Are there ways for me to get involved in that? Are there ways for me to support this effort? Are there ways for me to do it myself? And maybe are there ways to put some of these principles in play with my family or my coworkers or whatever it might be? But I would say this call of Jesus is probably one of the most unheeded calls, particularly by Catholics in the country. We do not listen to Jesus asking us to go out 2 by 2, and we have 1,000 reasons, and we push that call to the side, which is why I think Pope Francis is very right to pound that drum, constantly cheering us on to go out to the margins. The reason for that, then, in conclusion, is this. We see the reason in the gospel as well at the end of the story. So at the beginning of the story, Jesus sends them out. At the end of the story, today's gospel, we see why. It says that the 72 returned rejoicing over the miracles that they saw. The 72 returned rejoicing. They left scared like all of us. They left on this mission. Boy, I'm not sure how this is going to work. This seems weird. What if people don't want us to come? What if they chase us off? Whatever. They overcame their fears, and again, they returned to Jesus rejoicing. If we stay in our homes and we just watch Netflix and we just spend all the time on the internet, or we drown our life in alcohol or drugs or food or shopping or whatever it might be, then it's much harder for Christ to show that He keeps His promises, that in that He loves us. If we're always shopping, then the only way that Jesus can sort of come to us is via a sale. If we're always watching, Christ can't break through. We put these bubbles around our lives and we insulate ourselves from the gospel and from Christ. But when we heed His call and we go out 2 by 2, when we go outside our comfort zone, we go to meet people where they're at, on their turf, in their homes, and let them know that we believe Jesus is real, that we love them, and we're praying for them, we see miracles. And it deepens our faith. And we realize that the reason Jesus sends us out 2 by 2 to the margins, to people's homes, is not for their sake, but for ours.